all the others.
So here's part of what the president said last night on the issue of immigration.
Wealthy politicians and donors push for open borders while living their lives behind walls and gates and guards. Meanwhile, working-class Americans are left to pay the price for mass illegal immigration. Reduced jobs, lower wages, overburdened schools, hospitals that are so crowded you can't get in, increased crime, and a depleted social safety net. Tolerance for illegal immigration is not compassionate. It is actually very cruel.
So we'll point that out. Illegal border crossings have been declining for decades. In 2017, the number was at a near 50-year low.
Okay, let's just stop right there again, Mika. They're at a 50-year low. You have to go back to Richard Nixon as president to find a time when border crossings were lower than they are right now.
It's only increased in recent months as families try and come here, families with children. And the president was also fact-checked by the sheriff of El Paso, Texas.
Now, listen, I don't know who the sheriff of El Paso, Texas is. I don't want to cross him.
Yeah, well,
whatever he says, I'm with him
if it was
or
your
her.
town. So this is what he was upset about, this claim. Take a look.
The border city of El Paso, Texas, used to have extremely high rates of violent crime, one of the highest in the entire country, and considered one of our nation's most dangerous cities. Now, immediately upon its building, with a powerful barrier in place, El Paso is one of the safest cities.
Yeah. El Paso Sheriff Richard Wiles responded with this statement. It is sad to hear President Trump state falsehoods about El Paso, Texas, in an attempt to justify the building of a 2,000-mile wall. The facts are clear. While it is true that El Paso is one of the safest cities in the nation, it has never been considered one of our nation's most dangerous cities, and El Paso was a safe city long before any wall was built. President Trump continues to give a false narrative about a great city that truly represents what this great nation is all about. And I think that's, I was saying it off the air, but I'll say it on the air. How can anyone see this as a good speech? How can anyone see this as unifying when he is spewing out lies to the American people? Lying. His data is wrong. His concepts are based on incorrect facts. This is an angry, racist platform that has been surrounded by sweet stories and World War II veterans, and of course, we all hate childhood cancer. Of course, he can smatter it with great stories that his staff helped put in there, but the bottom line is his platform is based on hate and lies.
So
bottom line.
Let's make it specific. Again, to illegal immigration. And that's what you pointed out before, that there were parts of the speech that many Americans will agree with and support, and some may actually support what he's saying about illegal immigration. But that part, when he gets to that part and he starts making these facts up, they're just built on lies and false assumptions.
He made up a lot of presidents have gone and given political speeches and State of the Union addresses, particularly on economic issues. So is it true that minority unemployment is way down? Yes, it's actually uptick. So has
because he said one thing that might actually not.
I mean, it's kind of like saying that the sun has shined most of the days of my presidents compared to Barack Obama. It's sort of meaningless, right? But all presidents do that. Politically speaking, I think people will watch this speech, and I haven't seen any polls about it, but I think most people will have a fairly positive reaction to the speech. It had a lot of applause lines, but it was not very deep on substance, right? They did all what Ronald Reagan invented. I brought so-and-so and so-and-so and pointed them all out. Right. We all love those stories.
Yeah, sure.
But it was short on substance and an agenda going forward.
I think if maybe most Republicans might like this speech, but I think Democrats and probably independents who are looking for facts and truth from the president are going to say he won again and misled the American people. I think one of the most outlandish things that the president has said over and over again is that the wall is being built, that the wall is already under construction, that the wall is already down and already being built. I think that this is the president saying in San Diego and El Paso, Texas, the wall that I was talking about in all my political campaigns, it's already helping save lives. That's simply not true. The wall has not begun being built. The repairs to the fencing that he's talking about started under a different administration. So I think it really shows that this president, as much as this was a good political speech and the idea that he came out there and spoke allegedly for an hour and a half, when we look at the actual substance, this is a president who continues to traffic in lies.
You just can't fact check Donald Trump's statements about immigration enough because they are built on a faulty foundation, a non-factual foundation. So, Michael Beschloss, what were some of your other insights from the speech?
Well, one thing we were looking for is how has Donald Trump changed since the Democrats took the House? And one historical example you will remember very well is 1996. Bill Clinton went to the well of the House in his State of the Union and said the era of big government is over. That worked because during the year, as you well know, after 1994, when you won and the Republicans took back the House and Senate after 40 years, Clinton began to move to the center. This prepared him to win re-election in 1996, also paved the way for those negotiations that you know so well, Joe, with Newt Gingrich over things like welfare reform and balancing the budget, things that you had a big part in. In Donald Trump's case, we've seen almost none of that. So at the beginning, when he was talking about bipartisanship and reconciliation, that was after this huge, more than a month government shutdown that may resume again in 1 week. It was really just rhetoric.
And that was really, Michael, a great point. That's what Bill Clinton was able to do. He was able to take a turn to the center, and it passed welfare reform, which his base loathed, passed a balanced or agreed with Republicans on balancing the budget, which Republicans loved, Democrats loathed. And you look at his biography, and that's what he's bragging about in the first chapter. Those were two of his great landmark achievements, and the question remains whether Donald Trump is going to be able to make that turn. I don't think many people believe he will. But, David, he did, though, touching on points, touching on Rick's point that, and what Peggy Noonan had said on some policy issues, and we talked about late-term abortions, which will really resonate with his base, and I think some people in the political middle. There was also his exhortation to bring the troops home. We've been fighting for 19 years. Bring the troops home from Afghanistan. Bring the troops home from Syria. Again, I think most policymakers think that is a very reckless thing to do right now, especially turning Afghanistan over to the Taliban and turning Syria back over to ISIS, a reconstituted ISIS. But still, a very popular political line to deliver.
I thought, Joe, that he did something clever in this speech on foreign policy, which was to anchor policies of retreat. And he had a good phrase in explaining what he means. He said, great nations do not fight endless wars. It's hard to argue with that.
Agree. Yeah.
Great nations don't keep on fighting. And so he wants to negotiate a way out of Afghanistan. But he cloaked all of that talk about retreat and withdrawal in these images of the great American victory in 1945. That's why it was so important to have the D-Day veterans there at the beginning and the Holocaust survivors there at the end, is that you got the traditional mythology of American power in service of what I and many analysts would say are actual policies of retreat and disengagement. It was a neat kind of backflip.
Yeah, a neat backflip, but he's actually going to Munich, being Neville Chamberlain with Afghanistan, with the Taliban, and with Syria, and with Russia.
Maybe too early to say about Afghanistan. But Syria absolutely.
I'm saying if he retreats. Of course, we were in Normandy on June the 6th, 1944 for one reason, because Republicans practiced isolationism from 1920 till December 7th, 1941. That's the part of the story he doesn't tell. And I will say, I made a mistake saying we should get our troops out of Iraq. We did get our troops out of Iraq in 2010, 2011, and it did lead to a power vacuum that led to the creation of ISIS. I just wonder if it's, again, a great political line, but fraught with so many geopolitical consequences, most of which, David, are bad.
They are bad. Another thing I love about State of the Union speeches is you look at the uniformed military, you look at the chiefs.
Yeah.
And you see the face of American military power. And you don't forget that whatever the president's saying, you've got the U.S. military. There they are. And the same thing with the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You're reminded of what the breadth of our republic is, whatever the guy up on the podium is saying. And so, as concerned as I was about this, call for pulling out quickly, you looked at Mark Milley, the new incoming chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he's going to resist it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Michael Beschloss, thank you very much.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.